We need your grace more than I thought I ever would. You forgave more than I thought you ever could. I was stronger in my head. Hey y'all, welcome back to Falling in Love with Hope K. And today we're going to be talking about grace. So the first video we talked about insecurities. We talked about those things that we may hide, that we're not satisfied with about ourselves, about our life. And then last week we talked about contentment. And a very crucial thing that we need to talk about as well is grace. We have to realize that this life is a process. No one's going to be perfect. No one's going to have it all together, including regarding our insecurities, including regarding our contentment. Some days we're going to feel more insecure than others. Some days we're going to feel more content with others. And for those days when we just can't seem to get it right, we do need to have grace for ourselves. And we need to have grace for other people who are going through the same situations. Now, as a disclaimer, because I know how you girls like to tussle, or I'm not saying that grace is an excuse, or grace gives people license to be horrible people, or license to sin, or any other caveat that somebody can take from this, but just the fact that at the very least, if God gives you grace, you need to extend yourself grace and extend grace to other people as well. A lot of times we want to beat people over the head about things and get to saying, well, you should know better, you should know better, you should this, you should that. But what about all the times when you got it wrong? What about all the times where you weren't perfect, where you were in a process and working through something and you didn't know better? And we say things like, oh, you should know better, you know better than that. Like all knowledge and all wisdom is innate. Like you're born with all the wisdom and all the knowledge that you're going to have for life. When the truth is, there are a lot of things that you don't learn until you experience it. So you have to give yourself grace to even learn so that you can grow. And even after you learn, giving yourself grace to get more developed in those areas. So when you do mess up, you don't have to fall off the wagon. You just, recognize your mistakes, your mishaps, and then keep moving forward. Everybody you meet is going to be in some kind of process. And depending on where they are, you have to determine, do I have what it takes to go through this process with this person? Because God might be calling them to do a certain thing in a specific way, and you may not be patient enough. If they're working on a goal that's going to take 5 years to get to the financial goal that you want to reach in a year, you see them doing the work, you see them making a progress, you see them struggling and making mistakes and learning, but you want their 5-year process to be 1 year. It's okay to be frustrated that you wanted this to be on a different timeline. It's okay to be frustrated when you realize that those timelines don't align. And it's also okay to say, I don't have what it takes to be in this process with this person. And I think in a lot of situations, things can get really testy relationship-wise because we don't necessarily want to be a part of someone's process because it's uncomfortable, but we also don't want to be alone, and we're not willing to walk away from a process that we know we haven't been graced to be a part of. It's really difficult to stay a part of somebody's process that you're not supposed to be in because it's not going to make sense. You're not going to have the vision, and it's going to be hard to give grace in an area where you really, really lack understanding. So if you do decide to be a part of somebody's process, another example, if someone has gone through a really traumatic experience that affects how they show up in a relationship, but you know they're working on it. They're working on it, and then they start to have a series of bad days or bad moments, or they stumble across a rough spot. You can't say, oh, you should be over this by now. You should be healed by now. You should be this by now. You said that you would go through this process with them. So you have to give them the grace to actually get through the process. That's why it's called a process. You don't just say, oh, I'll go through this process with you while it's comfortable. I'll go through this process with you, while things are looking the way I want them to look. And then as soon as the process gets difficult, now you're pushing on them to hurry up and be finished with it. If you're doing that, then maybe you're not the person to be leading them down this walk or down this journey, and that's also okay. Again, we have to have that awareness to say, you know what? I am not graced to give you grace in this area. So I'm going to exit and allow someone else who is more equipped to help you in this process. And even in situations as far as relationships, every process that your partner may be in may not be an area that you're supposed to be trying to help them with. And that could be causing more tension because you're trying to push and push and push, and you think that they should be doing this, and you think they should understand this, and you got all these you should, when you actually don't really know what you're talking about. And they would be better served going through this particular process with someone else. And it's okay for you not to be a part of everything. So again, make sure you have the capacity, and make sure that you're not going off your own emotions and getting upset with them because you have an expectation and you're trying to rush someone else's process along. And also realizing, maybe this is supposed to be something they do with someone else, but maybe this is something for them to figure out on their own. Everyone has an opinion, everyone has ideas, everyone has advice, myself included. When we see somebody going through something, we see somebody struggling with something, we really want them to be better. And sometimes as humans, we really want that uncomfortable season to just be over. So we try to push and push and push and push. And maybe this is something that person just has to stumble through alone. And you don't have any choice but to give them grace. Because a lot of times when somebody's stumbling through something alone, you have no idea what's going on. It could be between them and God, between them and an accountability partner, but you have no insight into that area and what's going on. So you can't offer anything but grace. And a lot of times we don't offer that grace. We just go to our assumptions. Like, oh, they like that because of this. They're like that because of this. When really they're just going through some things and working through some things that you cannot see. So sometimes, we're not giving grace, but we sticking around. And it's not because we have their best interest at heart, but it's because we want to say, well, I was there when they was going through the process. I was there when they was getting it out the mud. I was there when they was shooting in the gym. And you can't give grace because you are in this person's life with the wrong intentions. You're looking at what you can get out of it. You aren't getting anything out of the situation. And just because you ask for something doesn't mean somebody can deliver it. If you're asking for something that they haven't built up the discipline or the wisdom or the skill to do, then you're going to be really disappointed. If they just start carpentry school and you ask them to build you a house, well, that's an unrealistic expectation. And if you don't really want to stick around, but you want a house, so you stick around so you can get a house, then you're going to be no fun to be in that corner because you don't want to be there. You just want what you want, and you're impatient with that person's process. So when you are in a position where you really, really have to give a person a lot of grace, you have to ask yourself, when I'm struggling to give someone grace, am I sticking in somebody's life where I shouldn't be? Because it could be difficult because I shouldn't be here. So that's something to think about. When grace is hard, let me look inward first. Because sometimes grace is hard because people really be tripping. But even in that instance, if somebody really tripping like that, then this could be your sign to say, okay, I'm giving grace the best I can. I'm giving grace the best I can. But maybe this is just not somewhere I should be. And you can give people grace and space at the same time. I'm glad that you're working on this, but I'm not equipped to be your accountability partner. That's wisdom. Because if you stick around somewhere where you shouldn't be, that grace is going to get harder and harder and harder and harder because you're somewhere that you shouldn't be. And also, just because it's hard doesn't mean that you shouldn't be there. So you also want to make sure that's something that you have that discernment about. Okay, this is hard. All of it's still looking inward. Why is this difficult for me? Is there something in me that's not healed that should be getting triggered from this? Well, the last person I dated said they was working on something, and it turns out they weren't doing nothing and they were lying all the time. Or the last person who said that they would do something for me, they never did it for me. So the fact that you're taking a long time to do it, I have some trust issues where I can't give you grace for what you're carrying out because of something in me that's unhealed. There's always some answer to why. Even in situations in the Bible, and the Lord said, give this person grace, go tell these people about me, and people ain't want to do it. Why didn't they want to do it? I'm not doing it because I'm scared. I'm not doing it because I don't deserve it. I'm not doing it because I don't think I'm worthy enough. And all these were inner things. They weren't things that the other people were doing. God knew the people were evil. God knew the people were going through a process. God knew the people were doing some things that they should have known better. And God also knew that they were doing some things where they didn't know better. He was calling people who would have the grace and the compassion to go to them, tell them what they didn't know, and also stick with them while they try to learn and figure it out. That's literally happening all through the Bible. Also, when you're giving people, advice or wisdom, or people are coming to you in those moments where you're supposed to have grace for them, don't get caught up in the I told you so moments. You've been trying to tell your friend that this person wasn't a good friend to them, and they finally come to you in tears. This person, they stole from me, or they did it. I knew they would. Girl, what? Or boy, what? Nobody asked you that. Your friend is grieving, and you talking about I told you so, because you want to be seen as the great wise one. You know what they're going through because you've been through the same situation before, and you got the wisdom that you have through experience. You don't need to do no I told you so. That's not helping nobody. Even with these reaction videos, you pastors come out doing crazy stuff. I knew they was a false teacher. I knew. Well, why you ain't tell nobody? Since you know everything. Why you didn't write them a letter like Paul since you know everything? Everybody want to know everything. And when some information come out, here everybody, I told you so, I told you so. Well, if everybody knew, then why are we still in the same predicament? Remember, even when you're giving grace, you could be doing all that you can do. Thank you, Holy Spirit. I remember why I wrote this down. Even the right words can fall on deaf ears with the wrong tone. Even with the right tone, it can fall on deaf ears. Make sure you leave room for the fact that I can give someone all the grace in the world and they could still remain doing the wrong thing. Because yes, there are some people who are going through the process, and there's some people who just don't care. And now that I'm reflecting, I was thinking about a situation with a person, and I was just thinking like, man, they asked me this advice about this situation, and I know that it's not going to be fruitful. I know that it's not going to help them. And I don't understand why they keep trying to force this situation to work. Like, I'm telling you, this is how it's going to turn out. I've been in this situation. I'm da-da-da-da. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? And I wasn't saying it to them in that way, but I'm thinking, and I'm sure it could come across in some of our conversations as well, how frustrated I was. I'm telling you how this ended terribly, and you're still choosing. Why did you even ask me if you were going to do what you wanted to do? Why did you do this? Why did you do this? Why are you not listening? Then I had to think like, girl, before you got this awareness, you did the same thing. And it didn't matter who had been through it already. It didn't matter who told you it was going to end up like this. It didn't matter how many times you saw it fail for other people. You still pursued it too. You want this person, you want to see them healed. You want to see them grow. You want to see them fulfill all the things that you see it in them. And that's the hardest part. You see the potential. Like, you see who they could be if they just let this thing go. Or if they keep towards this thing. And it's like, bruh, what are you not understanding? And just that quick, the grace we had is gone. Well, she don't want to listen to me, so I'm going to stop talking to her. Then when don't nobody want to talk to you about nothing anymore, you like, well, why ain't nobody talking to me? Because what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? And that's something I had to grow through. So even when I see people being hypercritical, it's like, okay, actually, let's maybe think about this differently. Because I've been in a situation where I was so hypercritical, not because I was malicious. That's what I was used to. And one of my friends, I'll never forget this. She was in a really, interesting situation. I'll put it that way. Because y'all have no clue what I'm talking about. But in the event that she watches this, I don't want her to feel like I was putting her business in the street. And when she finally told me, I said, I didn't know that. I was so like, my heart was broken for her. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell me? Like, I'm your best friend. Why didn't you tell me? Well, I didn't want you to judge me. That hurt. That hurt a lot. Because I thought I was being the best friend I could be. I was talking too much. I wasn't listening enough. I was giving too much of my opinion. And too much of what I thought she should have known, she didn't. Because she's not me. She didn't get the same guidance as me. We live two different lives. So how can I say you should have known better? How can I? If we're thinking broadly, not the people who just be out here doing crazy stuff. And even then, sometimes they don't know better. Just because that's what they chose, they might have chose that because they don't know better. You have experienced better, so you know better. You have experienced goodness, so you know goodness. They're choosing evil. They never knew goodness. They can't choose what they don't know. That doesn't excuse them from being evil, an evil person. They're going to reap their harvest of being evil. But they didn't choose good. They don't know good. They are evil. Evil is them. No point in you getting in no back and forth match with somebody who evil is them. In a situation with my friend, that made me be more intentional about giving people grace. And this really should be a memory verse for me. Like, I should know this. I really should. I'm going to give myself grace, but I'm also going to set the expectation to memorize this verse because it's one of my favorite verses. And I remember reading this verse. I have it somewhere. I took my sticky notes off the wall and I was in tears. I'm just like, Lord, why do I feel so heavy? Like, why do I feel so worthless? Why do I feel never enough? And I'm doing my Bible study. I read Matthew 7, Matthew 7, verse 2. For in the same way you judge others, this was the version that I read that, cut like a knife. For the same way you judge others, you will be judged. And with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. The same way you judge others, you will be judged. And with the measure you use, the same measure will be used to you. So basically meaning, the way you judge others, that's how you're going to be judged. That's straightforward. The way that you measure others, the way that you critique others, the way that you, rate others, the same rating, the same scale is going to be used for you. So if I'm harshly judging everybody else, same way I'm going to be judged. If I'm saying you should know better, you should know better, you should know better, same expectation is going to be on me. And in my case, it was, okay, take it a bit further. It's not just, well, the way I'm judging them is the way I'm going to be judged. The way I'm judging me is the way I'm judging them. The standard on me is the standard I have placed on them. And knowing what I was going through and what I was battling, it was too heavy. It was too unrealistic. I had unrealistic expectations for myself, so I had unrealistic expectations for others. I couldn't give grace to myself, so I couldn't give grace to others. Just like I said, they couldn't choose goodness because they didn't know goodness. I couldn't choose grace because I didn't know grace. I didn't give myself grace. I didn't give myself space to move. It was always, girl, you know better. Why did you do that? Why did you do that? That was stupid. That was dumb. I'm an idiot. Don't nobody have a safe space. You ain't a safe space for you. How can you be a safe space for somebody else? You don't want to learn. How can you inspire other people to learn? You don't want to grow. How can you inspire other people to... Why would anybody want to listen to somebody who hate themselves? and is in denial about it. People don't mind hearing from some people with flaws who are honest about it and gracious. But they don't want to hear from people with flaws who are acting like they don't have them. Like, girl, you talking about you better love yourself, you better leave that man, and you in a toxic relationship. You better treat that girl right, bro. You better da-da-da, and you cheating on your girlfriend. You better abstain, you better do this, and you having sex with this dude. You having sex with this girl. Don't do this. Live holy, live holy. You turning up drunk every weekend. And that's the issue that a lot of people have with the church. And this, well, I guess it was going to be about the church because every video start one way, turn up Christian. But their issue that people are like, well, it's hypocrites, it's hypocrites, it's hypocrites. And people say, well, you get hurt in the world, you keep going to the world. You get hurt in here. The expectation is different. If I say I'm a Christian, the expectation is different. This isn't ambiguous. And you don't have to choose this. So if you make a choice, and that's what you say you're going to do, and you understand the weight of the choice that you're making, there's a higher expectation for you. There's also grace for you. But you can't, Matthew 7:2, you can't be judging everybody and denying everybody grace and then think you can be out here doing your 1, 2, 3 and nobody else in the world can make a mistake. You're the only person who can struggle. And then once you struggle, once you tell everybody else how not to struggle, they just post to not struggle. That doesn't make any sense. That don't make no sense. So, yep, that's all I got for y'all.